Alright guys, let's get through the rigmarole first before we get into the Miami Dolphins podcast. Remember guys, this posts every single Wednesday. We give you all the Miami Dolphins news you need to know about. In the second segment of the show, we give you all the AFC East news you need to know about. And third but not least, we answer fans' questions, comments, and concerns, which is probably my favorite segment of any show. Definitely my favorite of any show. So let's get into this. This is we're gonna get into some of the news. This article is by Zach Links. You read a lot of articles by Zach Links on this channel. This is just a couple of notes here and there about the Dolphins. Really, we're almost in training camp mode. We're close to it, so which is awesome. So training camp is just right around the corner. So let's look at this. So this was a huge deal for no reason, similar to the Jarvis Landry situation where everybody was freaking out that Jarvis Landry said he could beat a football team. Oh my God. Sue basically said the same thing, but in a little bit, he articulated it a little bit better because he's Sue. It says, I think they asked him, I guess the question, can the Patriots be stopped by any team in the AFC this year? Dolphins defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh certainly thinks so. So that was the headline there. So this is a quote from Ndamukong Suh. He said, quote, I think the Patriots are definitely beatable. It's just a matter of playing a good game, almost a perfect game in a lot of ways, because they've got great coaching and obviously great players and talent on their side of the ball. So you've got to be going on all cylinders. Without question, I have a ton of respect for them, but without question, they're definitely beatable as everybody is in the league. And he's absolutely right. I mean, you could beat any football team ever, really. I mean, it just matters. Sometimes it's the day you play. I mean, sometimes things don't fall your way. It is what it is. But you just can't. One thing you really can't do against the Patriots is you just can't turn the ball over. And if we don't turn the ball over, especially in Gillette, I think that's really what's killed us is just turnovers. If we don't turn the ball over in Gillette and get off to a faster start, we have definitely a better chance of beating them in Gillette. But again, in our house, we play them very, very well. So I'm not very, very concerned about it. And same thing with Sue. Like, just because he said we could beat a football team, why do people have to have a problem with that? I mean, everybody should respect Sue instead of tearing his opinion apart because he has an opinion. It's really stupid. Anyway, this next piece of news here is about the linebacker situation. This is by Zach Links. This is his article. We're going to read a little bit of it here. Don't want to steal the whole thing from the guy. He says the Dolphins have yet to tell any of their linebackers where they will be playing in 2017, but one team source tells Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald that the most logical option is having Lawrence Timmons in the middle with Kiko Alonso on the weak side. In the past, Alonso has been reluctant to move from inside linebacker, but it appears that he is going to have to make the shift in order to suit the offseason addition of Timmons. Alonso indicated back in March that he would be a good sport about switching positions for the former Steeler. He was probably a bit more amenable to the idea after inking a 3-year extension worth up to $29 million. So what I read into that, first of all, I don't think that's true. I think that's kind of misinformation. First of all, Lawrence Timmons has said many times throughout since he signed as a Dolphin that he does not care where he plays. So I don't think it's a matter of a fit for Lawrence Timmons as well, because in Pittsburgh he played all 3 positions. The man played defensive end at one point. He can play any position you want him to play. He can play left, right, middle. It doesn't matter. Weak, strong, in the middle of the field. It doesn't really matter. He's done it all, and he's done it all at a high level. And he's, if you put him on the outside, especially in a 4-3 system, where the outside linebacker blitzes probably a little bit more than the middle linebacker does, especially if you're on the left side. So Lawrence Timmons fits his play style fits on the weak side or strong side just as much as it does in the middle, and he can still make calls from that position. His vantage point might not be as good, but he can still make calls from those 2 positions. If I had to pick who I would want in the middle, it would probably I would say Raekwon. Here's a cool story about rookie linebackers. When Luke Kuechly got into the league, he didn't play middle linebacker right away. He played weak side linebacker, and the reason for that was you want a veteran presence in the middle of the field, making calls, recognizing formations. So that is the reason you do not, it's all based off of experience. That is the reason you do not want to start somebody like of Luke Kuechly's talent and caliber at the middle linebacker position. Even though he could do it, he just isn't veteran savvy yet. So that's the reason I think Raekwon McMillan he probably won't play. And if he does, it will be like in midseason, just like Luke Kuechly did. I think it was like 6 to 8 games in, Luke Kuechly actually took that role over because it was actually because of injury. So hopefully that doesn't happen with us. But Raekwon McMillan is not. I don't think he's going to play middle because of that. And then obviously you got to factor in what Matt Burke said, that he doesn't really care. I mean, in an NFL, from an NFL standpoint, it matters because it does matter where you line up. But he said it doesn't matter with all three of them. They all three can play all three positions, which I agree with. I think they all three can definitely play any of the positions. Now that I don't know where this Kiko Alonso is saying I've heard Kiko say that he would rather play in the middle, but where this speculation is coming from, I have no idea. But I've heard that before, I think, from Kiko. So it is an interesting situation. Where all three of them are going to play, I don't know. I would suspect that Lawrence probably ends up in the middle, and I doubt Raekwon will because of that reason, because of the experience issue there. So yeah, this is another semi-related Dolphin story. It's just kind of I guess we can throw this in here. Former Dolphins tight end Evan Rodriguez is hoping that his performance in the American Flag Football League last week will help him catch the attention of NFL teams. And this is a quote from him. He says, "I feel like I gave the people a different view of me." So interesting. If he wants to come out around and try out, I feel like our tight ends. I think Tom Storante. If you guys remember the kid, the product out of UCLA, I was really high on him coming out of the draft because he is really a smooth route runner. And some of the game tape he got, some of the NFL action that he actually got, because he did play in some NFL games last year, a lot of people forget. Some of the routes, Tannehill ended up hitting touchdowns, I think, on all of those plays, but in the red zone, he played like if you watch the tape, he's wide open like every single time. And granted, we still got a touchdown on all of them. It's not like Tannehill missed him, but he, like, both times he ran really, really, really crisp routes to get open. He is a mismatch problem, Thomas Durante. I think he's an interesting guy to keep your eye on this preseason because he has a ton of talent. And I know Adam, especially in his offense, he loves to sub in and sub out because he's a crazy scientist back there, for God's sakes. The man comes up with the coolest formations of all time, and he loves mismatches. He loves matchups. That's probably the coolest thing about Adam Gase's offense. Wherever he can find a matchup, whether how deep he has to go on his roster, he'll find somebody to mismatch with on your defense. So Tom Storante is that guy that I think we should hopefully, the thing about him, the reason he didn't get any playing time last year is because he can't block, and he's not strong. But in terms of a mismatch, Tom Storante is the definition of a mismatch. He's such a crisp route runner, and he's so athletic. He's pretty dang good after the catch. So I think hopefully we see more of him in the evolution of Thomas this upcoming season to get him on the football field, because I really want to see him as a receiving threat this upcoming season, because I think I wish he got more playing time last year, but again, he didn't fit the tight end that we needed, especially for the identity of that football team, where we needed a 2 tight end set or 1 tight end sets where Marquise Gray and Dominic Jones, where those both guys can really block. Thomas Durante would be a liability in that kind of a formation. So it'll be interesting to see if Thomas Durante really evolves into something, because I still think he has the talent to do it. I still think he does. Talent is not an issue with that kid. All right. This next news story is stupid, and we're going to read the headline, and that's about it. ESPN this, I swear to God. Okay, it says ESPNers like Gase, Dolphins set up for a long haul. Who cares? I know a lot of people like to hear, reassurance and stuff like that from, ESPN for no reason. But, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Apparently they like the culture that Adam Gase is setting up. Who cares? Let's see here. Alright, let's see if we can't find anything that we still need to talk about here before we move on to the second segment of the show. Yeah, that's another good thing, is that the headline of this article, Dolphins will enter training camp in good health. We will, actually, which is good. Hopefully we can get out of training camp and good health is the more thing I'm concerned about. Let's see here. Is there anything else? Obviously, people are still worried about Lawrence Timmons, I see here. On some of these articles, every team's riskiest offseason move, ours is Lawrence Timmons. I would agree with that. I think hopefully he pans out. He needs to pan out. And you know what? Even if he doesn't, I feel like we have depth behind him to sufficiently replace him. But he does bring an element. Even if he's not a good cover, he does not, like I've said before, the man does not have to be a good coverage linebacker. He can be there first and second down and get subbed down on third for Neville, because Neville's a really good coverage linebacker. So I'm not really concerned about that, especially in like a quarters package. You know what I mean? Where there's like 1 to 2 linebackers at a time. So yeah. Let's see here. Obviously, Tannehill made headlines. Definitely the most talented receiver group we've had, and we went over this in the fan Q&A. I did want to revisit it. Let's see here. Yeah, so I did want to revisit that because I think it is an interesting topic, and that's about it. So that's about all for like the headlines of the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, everything's pretty much dead right now because of the offseason. So anyway, the whole like what was I gonna say? Oh, the Dolphins receiver core thing. It is really interesting because when you look at the 2012 season, and what I meant by Tannehill I think he in the top 10 Dolphins rookie seasons ever. I don't know where he would land, but he would be in there for sure. I don't know how high he would be, but there's no doubt in my mind that he would be in it. But that season was special for a lot of different reasons. That season was, I don't know, that for some reason that season holds a special place in my heart. But Devon Bess, you go back and watch, like if you guys remember Devon Bess, what a like interesting receiver he was. His rookie year broke. I think he broke the record for most catches in undrafted rookie in NFL history, and there's obviously been some great undrafted rookie receivers. So Devon Best is very underrated. I felt like I underplayed his talent level in that video because he was a very, very good slot receiver, and he was really good after the catch, and he was a really, really good special teams player. And one of the things I wanted to revisit in terms of the Dolphins receiver core that I didn't talk about a lot was in that 2015 season where it was a mass exodus, basically, because Rashard Matthews, Lamar Miller gone, Olivier Vernon gone after that season, which is sad because all three guys, obviously homegrown, drafted as a Dolphin, should have been a Dolphin. If I could have kept any of the three, it would definitely be Olivier Vernon, but in hindsight, the Lamar Miller move was amazing because J.J. is an absolute, dreadlock god. But what I was about to say is, I underplayed Rashard Matthews a lot in that video, and I felt like Rashard Matthews in the 2015 season, before the 2016 season, was truly a really, really good receiver, and he made a lot of great plays, and he didn't even finish the entire season. He actually got hurt. If it wasn't for that, we may have had 2 receivers go over 1,000 yards, which would have been pretty awesome. So I think that's going to happen this upcoming season with Devontae and Jarvis. But one thing that the common thread between all of those lineups, and I think I alluded to it in the fan Q&A, is there is not one of those. If you go through from 2012 to 2017, now that we have it now, but back up until 2017, Tannehill has never had a dominant tight end on a consistent basis. I might cut that sneeze out. I might have to go back through it and cut that sneeze out. Anyway, he's never had a number 1 tight end on a consistent basis. Charles Clay was constantly injured. He's never had a dominant outside receiver. So we have both of those things, potentially, if they can stay healthy, on this 2017 roster. So Tannehill, again, has never had that before. So I'm very, very, very excited to see what he does with these guys. And hopefully they stay healthy, because that would suck. If you guys remember the Dustin Keller preseason injury against the Texans, I was very excited for Dustin Keller because I felt like him and Tannehill, and they actually hooked up on a touchdown in that game. They looked like they were going to have some chemistry going, and he ended up getting hurt. So hopefully those guys can stay healthy so we can see. Again, Tannehill never had a dominant outside receiver, never had a number 1 tight end in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see what Tannehill does with this roster, especially since, he's all the things he said about the Adam Gase's offense so far this has been really, really encouraging. And like the thing that sucks, the most giant gorilla balls that like seriously like just sucks bad, is when Tannehill got hurt. The game was slowing down for him. This was when he was really getting super comfortable with the playbook, and everybody around him was super comfortable with the playbook. Everybody was getting it. Everybody was in it. Everybody was hitting it with stride, right? And the fact that he was like the game was slowing down for me. It was thinking fast, playing fast, and it really sucks because I would have loved to have seen him play in that. Out of any Dolphin other than Cameron Wake. I think Tannehill really deserved to play in that playoff game. For all the crap he's been through, he's been through more donkey poo than Cameron Wake has his entire career. If you think about the amount of adversity this man has went through, and the amount of just ridiculous hate that doesn't, like, people ignorant talk. I mean, the stuff that Tannehill has went through and persevered through, I think it just really sucked that we didn't get to see him play in that game. It really, really did. And I feel like the game would have definitely been closer. I'm not going to say we'd have won the game, but obviously there were some big moments there where Matt Moore turned the ball over. It would have been interesting to see what Tannehill would have done. And Tannehill does not turn the ball over. He's not an idiot. So he's never done that unless you count his second season in the league where he did turn the ball over a lot. He had like 17 interceptions. But other than that, never turned the ball over at a high rate at all. So it sucks that he just couldn't finish that season. It hurt as a Dolphins fan, because it was like, you know what, we've been through all of these years together in a way, and it would have been nice to see see Tannehill take a snap in that playoff game. So it did suck. It just sucked. It just the gorilla balls, like they sucked gorilla balls. Okay. Let's see here. I think are we gonna move on? Okay, one more topic before we get out of here. And I see this on the Dolphins Bleacher Report, and when I saw it, I was like, this is stupid. It's just dumb. It said something about, okay, hang on, maybe if I can find it really quick. Oh, I don't think I can find it. But anyway, I just read it, and it was about our schedule, and it's like, tougher schedule will prove that the Dolphins are for real. No, that is not true. I swear to God, bet money, if you go back and you watch, just look up ESPN, Denver Broncos, will they make the playoffs or something like that. This is the most hypocritical thing that the media does. Nobody picked us to make the playoffs. Everybody thought we were going to get beat by the Cardinals, even though they weren't living up to expectations. They were top 10 on offense, and they were second in the NFL. They ended up finishing first in the NFL in defense. So that team was extremely, extremely talented. Nobody picked us to beat them. Everybody had us losing to the Bills on the road, because we had been struggling against the Bills, no matter how good that team was. Everybody had us getting beat by them. So I don't believe that. I think that schedule was tough. Those games were tough. Rex Ryan is not. He is not a cupcake. I mean, he's a very, very, very hard. That defensive scheme is hard to play against, and I mean that's proven. I mean, even Tom Brady. I mean, now over the last few years, Tom Brady's just ate it up. But when Rex had a personnel man, he had some talented players on that defense. My point is it was not easy getting to the playoffs that year at all, and I feel like people just forget about that. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's like what? It's like, so even though that we made the playoffs, it was like if the Denver Broncos if anybody else made the playoffs, it would have been whatever. If the Titans did it in the AFC South, which is one of the weakest spans in a division in NFL history, is in the AFC South. I wish we were in the AFC South. We beat up on everybody for the last 10 years. You probably would have won like 4 different division titles in that span of time. Anyway, let's move on from that, because I just think that's dumb. Like, are you really trying to like downgrade the fact that we made the playoffs? And it wasn't easy, by the way. That's what I'm getting at. It wasn't like it was an easy cupcake schedule there. The Cardinals were a tough team. The Cardinals beat the Seahawks in the last game of the season, and those teams hate each other, and they both play at 100%. And they beat the division, or the the division winning Seattle Seahawks. All right, so let's move on to the AFC East. Now, I can't even get off the subject. It ticks me off so much. Let's start with the New England Patriots. And the AFC East news you need to know about. As this loads, I'm just going to make awkward conversation. Okay, here we go. Which 2016 division winners will miss the playoffs? That's a poll. I mean, we're not going to get into that. I don't even know why I read that, to be honest with you. Let's see. Nothing really. There's nothing really here. So, yeah. Nothing for the New England Patriots. Who cares about the Patriots? We hear enough about the Patriots. It is amazing to me how much people can talk about the Patriots. Alright, let's see here. Alright, I guess we'll go to the Buffalo Bills next. Who have been quite... you know, I don't know. I feel like they're worse than they were last year. I feel like they were better as just talent-wise as a football team. I think they tried to. I mean, they did try to improve their receiver core with the drafting of Zay Jones and stuff like that. So, and I guess in that sense they got a little bit better. Shaq Lawson wasn't comfortable in a 3-4. That's interesting. So there you go. There's a little thing, a little nugget right there. Shaq Lawson not comfortable in a 3-4. Bills forced to rely on tight end Charles Clay. That's interesting. I guess we'll dive a little bit more deep into that. Right here. Let's see what that's all about. So let's see what that's all about. All right. Another just one that really hurt me was Big Play Clay leaving. Because God, was he just why? Why'd you do it to us, Charles Clay? Out of all the people, the Buffalo Bills. Let's see here. I'm not really seeing anything about Charles Clay. Let's see here. The Bills. Okay, here's a here. This article is by Zach Links, so he gets the credit for this. All right, it's been more than a decade since the Bills have made a difference-making tight end. Writes Vic Kerr something. The organization did little to improve the unit during the draft for free agency, meaning the team will have to rely on former restricted free agent Charles Clay. The team inked the 28-year-old to a contract prior to the 2015 season. He averaged 54 receptions for 540 yards and 3 touchdowns during his 2 years in Buffalo. Clay counts for $9 million against the cap, which presumably was presumably the front office from pursuing reinforcement at the position. As a result, says the team, will have to get by with what they have. So they're not comfortable with the tight end position, which is interesting. So there's a little nugget for you guys. That's really interesting. The reason I was reading the headline there, I didn't see that from before. And the Shaq Lawson wasn't comfortable in 3-4 thing is really weird. All right, let's move out of here. Let's go to the who's next? The New York Jets. Which who crap? I mean, God. Let's see here. Let's get into this. I think this has something to do with Demario Davis, which is another funny little situation there, and how he returns back to his former team. Let's see here. Okay, this is the Jets here. If Demario Davis is going to be a contributor for the Jets in his second go-around with the team, he'll have to do better in coverage. Brian Costello of the New York Post writes, Davis was a good run stuffer for Gang Green, but teams routinely targeted him on wheel routes and gained yards at his expense. The Jets reacquired David Davis in a June swap that saw Calvin Pryor go to the Browns. Many thought Davis would be dropped from the roster, but he should be able to stick around after agreeing to a pay cut. The release of Demario Davis the release of David Harris also created a need for the team at middle linebacker. So there's a little nugget for you. That's all the AFC East guys news you need to know about. I'm sure we're going to get even more news as the season keeps going, and I can't wait for the season to start, and I can't wait for preseason to start. This podcast is going to be amazing. So we're going to enter the fan Q&A segment of the show. I just stretched my back. I'm recording this super early in the morning. My back is pain. It's in pain. As this loads here, God, for God's sake, I don't have to have these awkward conversations with you guys. What am I supposed to say as this loads? I don't know what I'm supposed to say, guys. All right, here we go. I'm not a comedian. I can't entertain you guys, and it's still loading, and we're still here. Let's see here. God, can you just load? Can you just load? That'd be nice. That would be nice. Okay. Now we're into the fan Q&A. Alright. I've answered this question before, I think. I think so. I'm not going to say I for sure I did. But this question comes from Mikhail Hansen. He says, which position group on offense and defense do you think is our biggest weakness? Our biggest weakness. Hang on. I gotta clear my nose. All right, back to the fan Q&A. What do I think our biggest weakness will be? Our biggest weakness on offense and defense. This is a great question. Man, there's not like a weakness. The thing I'm gonna say, what am I most concerned about? I would say I want to see the linebackers play together. I got to see how that turns out because of the, obviously the hardships that we've dealt with that positional group for the last 5 crapping years. It feels like probably even more than that, to be honest with you. And on offense, I need to see this offensive. I'm just crossing my, I'm not even gonna say that. I'm just holding my breath and hoping that the offensive, I want these guys, I'm stuttering. I want these guys to collectively play a lot of games together. I want Mike Pouncey on the football field because they can do a lot of damage when they're together. So I'm just hoping that the offensive line will stay healthy. That's about it. Let's see here. This question comes from Mikhail Hansen. He says, do you think Mike Pouncey can stay healthy for at least 10 games? And how will our offensive line do without him? Do I think he can stay healthy? I hope he can stay healthy for 10 games, and I think he can. I think he can with this plan that Adam Gase has set in front of him in terms of he's not going to be practicing, which is nice. He does. I mean, obviously he's going to go through walkthroughs and stuff of that nature. Still going to be with the team and stuff, but he doesn't need to do that. And how will I think he can with that and plan really pacing himself. And how will our offensive line do without him? We'll do a whole lot better without him than we did last year. I feel like the depth that we retained in terms of like Craig Ubrick, who did a good job in his excuse me, in his absence he did a great job. Obviously Anthony Steen. We have a lot of players there that can play center. We're putting Ted Larson at center a little bit, so we have a lot more talent behind Mike Pouncey, which is nice. And the funny thing about that is all of that talent was basically on accident, which is really funny in my opinion. Because none of those guys, like those, most of those guys were desperate signings, and they ended up panning out pretty well. Ricky Ricardo, this question comes from, I think, hang on, yeah, I've answered this question. This question comes from Ricky Ricardo. He says, what is your opinion on Tom Brady topping the jersey sales in Florida? I think it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, not everybody's a Dolphins fan in Florida. There's 2 other professional football teams there, and Florida is a very big state. But it's pretty. If the state of Florida was all Dolphins fans, it would be pretty weird that would happen. Like I would question everybody there, but they're not. So it's not that disturbing to me. All right, so let's move on. Gamer underscore Rifk. He says, do you think Miami will go to the playoffs again? I think our team is so very, very talented. And I'm not going to predict anything, but I think we're definitely a playoff team in terms of talent, and even better than that, I feel like, in terms of talent. We just got to put it together. This question comes from Dashcams. He says, my question, did the Dolphins make the playoffs last season due to a weak schedule, or was it Adam Gase the long-term solution? Go Dolphins. Great question, Dashcam. Kind of discussed this earlier, actually, which was really weird. Again, I don't think the schedule was weak. I mean, before the season started, especially since the first, few games were so very, very difficult. But the last few games, what? Here's what I'll say. And, Peyton Manning, which I think this is hilarious, but Peyton Manning played in the AFC South for most of his career, and most of the time, everybody in that division, the Jaguars had a couple good teams here and there. The Texans really never had a good team. But Peyton was there. But he always played in a weak division, always had easy schedules to the playoffs, and nobody ever, complained about that. And I don't even think it's even close to that, the equivalent of that. I don't even think, like I said before, I don't think the schedule is weak. So I don't know why people are saying that about our teams. Like, what the heck? Anyway, and is Adam Gase a long-term solution? Absolutely. I think Adam Gase, when you look at NFL history, and you look at head coaches that right away made an impact, it's really, 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 really interesting. When you look at Adam Gase's impact was a little bit different than some other. So just to compare him to some of the great NFL coaches of all time, and we're going to compare him to some head coaches that didn't have as good as, like, they started off, their first year was really good and their second year was not as good. So if you look at like somebody like Don Shula, who we made the trade for, he immediately made an impact on the football team. I think we won 10 games when he got there, and the year before that, I can't remember how many games we won. I think it was like 3, something crazy like that. So that was a very similar situation to what Don did, right? Same thing with people like there was never a lot. There's never been like Bill Belichick in the Cleveland Browns. Like, it took him a while to get that program going. There's been few great head coaches that have right away made a difference. Chuck Noll is another one that made a difference in year 2, not year 1. So it is very rare that a great head coach makes a difference in year 1, right? The difference between Adam Gase and like somebody like, let's say, a Todd Bowles, right, that went 10-6 his first season, barely missed the playoffs, and then the next year was a total disaster, right? The difference between both teams is personnel. The Jets were built to win that season. They had really old players. Their quarterback was nowhere near as good as ours. Ryan Fitzpatrick had probably his best season, and that's the best. I mean, that is the best I've ever seen him play by far. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is he was an okay quarterback for his entire season, his entire career. They had people like Matt Forte. Their offensive line was super old, and we see that now. And they just had no sustainability on that team whatsoever. And then they had like Darrelle Revis really gave his last Darrelle Revis year. The whole team was really old, with longtime Jet vets, right? And we see that now with their youth movement. Like, it's truly a youth movement because that whole entire team was really old. So the difference between us and them it's like a night and day. Obviously, we're a very, very young football team that is going to have sustained success over the course of hopefully a very long time. And hopefully we can keep, and we're looking like we can keep most of these guys together. So that's the difference between that Jets team and this Dolphins team this team was just super young, and they're just entering their primes. This is as opposed to the Jets, where that was probably the last good year that all of those old guys gave, and it wasn't sustainable. And now, if we can go back even, let's rewind the clock back even further, and look at Tony Sperano's season where he went 11-5 with the Wildcat. That was the last time we as a franchise have won the AFC East. That team was really old. Obviously, that was Jake Long's rookie season, if I'm not mistaken, in 2008. 2007, obviously, we went like obviously only won one game. Pat White it was a disgusting disgrace for Dolphins fans to have to watch that. But that year was pretty tough. So the difference between that team, the 2008 team, and this team is that team was also pretty old, and especially on defense. We had people like Joey Porter, who again gave his last season. It wasn't like we had a young guy there who's going to be there for the next how many ever years, right? He's not, it's not like we had a Khalil Mack. We had Joey Porter, who was at the end of his career. And then secondary, our corners, Will Allen, people like that. Those guys were super old. Jeremiah Bell was a little. I don't know. I can't remember how old he was in 2008. But the whole team was basically old vets. Players that obviously Chad Pennington, he had been obviously through the rigmarole many times with his shoulder injuries. It sucks that he got injured like that because he could have had a very long career if it wasn't for that, but he wasn't sustainable at the quarterback position. That obviously affected us in the years coming after that. Our offensive line was older. That team was just old, and another great example of an old vet team. There's a huge difference between a veteran team, an old veteran team that has a good season, and an upstart young football team, like super young, 24 and up kind of football team. That football team is gonna have years and years and years of success, as opposed to that team that just basically gave their last really good year, and a lot of that had to do with obviously Chad Pennington. not being there in 09. And we really got the Chad Henning treatment. Okay, let's not even talk about that. I'm starting to get headaches. But you guys get what I'm saying here. There's just the differences between those teams and this team. It's like night and day. And the biggest difference was consistency at the quarterback in the 08 season, obviously. And the defense was a whole lot older than our defense is now. And our offense is way more talented at the receiver position than it was back then. So, yeah. It's just a whole lot more sustainable. And, yeah. All right, so to move on from that question, let's see here. Dwight Keller Williams. He says, this question comes from Dwight Keller Williams. He says, do you think that the Miami Dolphins won't have as hard of a time against the Patriots because they lost LeGarrette Blount? It's a great question. LeGarrette Blount is such a tough guy to defend. One of the best power backs of the last 5 years. Him and Marshawn have really dominated that category. Is it going to be easier? No, I don't think it's going to be easier. But I understand what you're saying because LeGarrette Blount really did torture us for the last few years. These last few years because of his running style and how poor our Dolphins team has been tackling. So no, I don't think they're going to be easier to guard necessarily. The Gamer12345 says, should the Dolphins go after free agent safety Marcus Gilchrist? No. We got too many safeties as is, and the safeties that we do have are having really good off season so far. The Gamer12345 says, this isn't a Dolphins related question, but what do you think of Steph Curry's big new contract? Good for Steph Curry. I'm not saying that in a rude way. I didn't mean to come. That sounded really rude. That sounded really. I apologize, Gamer. But I really don't. I mean, I don't care how much money you pay a player. It never bothers me. Unless you're Brock Osweiler, then it's like that's just a dumb decision. To lock each other at the hips with that guy for that many years. The Gamer12345 says, who do you think is the worst starting player on this roster? That is such a interesting question. Oh my God. I'm gonna skip that answer to that. I'm gonna skip that one. I mean, if I had to say, probably Ted Larson if he starts. I would say him. Ronald. This question comes from Ronald. He says, Skaggs, you said before Miami needs a nose tackle on defense and drafted Vincent Taylor, who happens to be a good nose tackle. Why does Miami need a nose tackle? I actually got a lot of crap for saying that. Because people are like, oh, it's 4-3. You got 4 down linemen, and 3 linebackers. It's a 4-3. And you don't need a nose tackle. In the 3-4, you got 3 down linemen. And nose tackles are supposed to eat up space because of that reason, because there is not an extra defensive tackle. And my rebuttal to that answer to that question is there's been so many defenses that ran a 4-3 over the years that have had nose tackles and had great success because of that. When you just look at NFL history in general. So that is my rebuttal to that. And if you want me to do some examples here, I guess the Giants are the best example. They run a 4-3, and they have Damon Harrison on their football team. So yeah. Let's move on from that. Let's see here. What's the next question? The answer to the question. And again, when I meant nose tackle, not necessarily have to have a traditional 3-4, not really that mobile kind of guy. I just want somebody who's a really good run stuffer and can eat up space, and we can use in sub packages. He can be out there in first and second down. We can sub him out on third down in pass rush situations, and put Devon Gottschalks out there. I don't think that's how you say his name, but there you go. Ronald says, who do you want Miami to draft? Okay, I answered that question in the fan Q&A. All-Star Gabe says, should the Dolphins either trade or release Koamisi? If he's, obviously if he's not cleared to play, he's going to retire. So we're basically waiting on that. They definitely shouldn't do any of those things. I think Koamisi adds a very versatile element to the Dolphins defense that can definitely benefit our team. Brandon, this next question comes from Brandon. He says, Ryan Tannehill said this is the best offense he's been around. How do you feel about that? Is that just a media answer, or do you think that is true? I think that is 100% true. Tannehill, not known to lie, and he's never said this is the best receiving core I've ever had. He's never said that before. Let's see here. This next question comes from William Ray. He says, do you think the slight hesitation in the front office has in getting Landry's deal done has to do with touchdown production. Even though that he is the heart and soul of the team, I feel that the ability to get touchdowns or your ability to prevent touchdowns determines whether you are the highest paid player or an average paid player. No, I disagree with that. Calvin Johnson is a perfect example of that. And I love when people bring up this touchdown argument. Is that season where he broke Jerry Rice's single season receiving season that season, and Julio almost broke it this past season. But he had like just as many touchdowns as Juice. I think Juice had more touchdowns than he did in that season. And that's Calvin Johnson. He just had a ton of yards. So it doesn't matter if you put the ball in the pan or not. If you're that productive, where you almost have 2,000 yards receiving, then you're gonna get paid a max deal, and you deserve it. If you're the best at what you do on my football team, I'm going to make sure, and you're 24 years old, I'm going to make sure you're locked up for the foreseeable future. So that's what matters, not touchdown production. Obviously, production in general matters, but if it didn't matter for Calvin Johnson, why should it matter for Jarvis Landry? William Ray says, now that tight end Julius Thomas is on the team, I answered this question. Yes, I answered this question. Mike Lewis says, do you agree that Jarvis Landry is already excuse me, I'm going to start over. Mike Lewis says, Mike Lewis, this next question comes from Mike Lewis. He says, do you agree that Jarvis Landry is already beginning to become a Dolphins legend? And given that he has said to the media that fan worries over his contract now seem unwarranted. Yes, I do think Jarvis Landry is becoming a Dolphins legend, especially since he's captured the fans' hearts. As he has, then yeah, he's going to go down as a Dolphins legend. And the entire what was this about the contract thing? Is it unwarranted that we should be worried? No. We're Dolphins fans. We should be worried about we're skeptical. That's what we are. We're skeptical by nature. That's how we're born. William Ray says, do you think this is the biggest sleeper on offense, defense, and special teams? Who do you think the biggest sleeper on offense, defense, and special teams? On offense, Davion Smith. And I keep saying Devon Smith. It's pronounced Davion Smith. I think he's a player that he's not a sleeper, but because I feel like if I say Devontae Parker, that's like, if you're a Dolphins fan, if you're watching this, you know about Devontae Parker. If you're 42 minutes into this podcast, and you're listening to this, you know about Devontae Parker. So I'm going to give you guys a little nugget. I'm going to say Davion Smith on offense. Defense, Cordrea. Again, that's another nugget, because if I said somebody like Xavier Howard, you guys know about Xavier Howard, how good of an offseason he's having. But somebody like Cordrea is really surprising me so far this offseason, and how far along he actually is. And he actually might get serious snaps at the nickel spot. So I'm going to say Cordrea on defense. And special teams, Jakeem Grant, even though he's not really a sleeper, I feel like he's going to have a way better season than he did last year. William Ray. This next question comes from William Ray. He says, if Koomisi is out for the season, do you think it would be best to kick Kiko Alonso outside and start the rookie Raekwon and the McMillan? If so, without seeing how he performs in training camp or preseason, do you think he is equipped to be the middle linebacker? We need to push this defense to the next level. Yeah, I think he definitely. I mean, again, middle linebacker, you have to be experienced at the middle linebacker position. And I think Raekwon McMillan is not experienced, but he's very, very smart. He's one of the smartest players that came out of that draft last year, if not the smartest player. He's an extremely, extremely smart guy. So I think he can handle it for sure, but I don't even think Koomisi is going to start. I don't think that ever was the thing. I don't think Koomisi is going to start. He's not going to be the final three. I think it's going to be Raekwon, Lawrence, and Kiko. We're trying to figure out, especially since I don't even think anybody in the Dolphins media is considering that now because of how good Raekwon McMillan has played so far. So it's a matter of who's going to be where. Let's see here. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? This is from William Ray again. He says, I believe Landry is really a number 2 wideout slot receiver. In order for this offense to truly take off to the next step, wide receiver Parker needs to become a true number 1 wideout and have 80-plus catches, 1,000-plus receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns, averaging 11 to 17 yards a catch. Do I believe... no, that doesn't need to happen to take this offense to the next level. Does Devontae Parker need to be a dominant outside threat? And if so, does that mean he has to? I don't think it necessarily means he has to go for 80 catches, but he can get 1,000. He might get 80 catches. Who knows? But I think he needs to be that dominant guy. I think he needs to be a 1,000 wide receiver, productive kind of guy on the outside. But Juice is going to be Juice. I don't. Calling him a number two, I don't think is the right way to articulate that. I think he is the slot receiver. That's the position he plays, is slot receiver, and he's the best slot receiver in the league. So he's not a number two. When I think of a number two, I think of like Julio and Muhammad. They both play the same position on the outside, but he's just the number two guy. You know what I'm saying? To Julio, because he is number two on the depth chart to Julio. So yeah, that's when I understand, and I understand what you're saying by number two. I'm not saying that that's the way you should think about it. I understand what you're saying about number two. So I don't think. I mean, yeah, I guess I agree and disagree. I agree in terms of the fact that Devontae Parker needs to be an 1,000-yard receiver because it's about time that he does that. But I do disagree that Jarvis Landry is a number two receiver, and I disagree. It will obviously the offense will take a next step if he has that kind of year. So I guess I agree and disagree with you. But that's just about Jarvis Landry. He says, okay, this next question from William Ray. He says, do you think the core success of our offense this year is going to be mastering the no-huddle offense, red zone, scoring mainly touchdowns over field goals, and improved catching ability on third down, meaning no drops on third down? Yes. Drops have been getting better as of late, which I'm not really concerned about. But the red zone thing, we got to improve our red zone percentage. We've been one of the worst offenses in the red zone. And definitely third down. Third down is more important than any other thing that you mentioned on that list, because we have been the worst third down offense, other than the LA Rams last year, which is atrocious. We're too dang talented to do that, and we were actually last in the NFL on offensive snaps taken. So those things need to improve. Ronald says, this question comes from Ronald. He says, Skaggs, can you find the red zone targets for the Miami Dolphins receivers? So red zone threats for the Dolphins: Devontae Parker. This is a good one. Devontae Parker. I'm not gonna say Kenny Stills. DP for sure. He's gonna get a lot of that. Leonte Carew. And that's about it for receivers. And obviously, I think Julius Thomas is gonna get a lot of looks there too. Most of the looks. Maybe not as much as Devontae. Ronald says, this next question comes from Ronald. He says, what do you think about some of the leaders in this team taking it upon themselves to seek out a young guy and try to mentor them? I haven't heard too much about this with many teams as long as I've followed football. That is very Pittsburgh 70s Steelers-esque. That's what those guys really did for their football teams. That's when they brought in, when Joe Green and Jack Ham and I'm forgetting that draft, that 74 draft. He did the same kind of thing, and that Steelers team did the same kind of thing anytime new players got in. So I think that's a great mentality. It's a winning culture mentality to have. This question comes from Ronald. This is not Dolphins related. He says, Skaggs, do you drink a lot of soda or energy drinks? No, I don't drink any soda or any energy drinks. I was once addicted, literally, to Coca-Cola, and I had to quit for my health. I can't go back. Ronald, I can't go back. Okay, let's see here. Miami. This next question comes from Ronald. He says, Miami needs to trade Devontae Parker to the Rams. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. No, Ronald, no, Ronald. No. Ronald says, what is your opinion on the, and obviously Ronald, I'm not being mean, I'm joking around. Ronald says, what is your opinion of the undrafted rookies on defense, Skaggs? To refresh you on the names to save time, there are linebacker. What is that supposed to mean, Ronald? You think I'm over here name checking on Google? What is that supposed to mean? I got this. Linebacker Chase Allen, defensive Cameron. Cannot say his last name. Still can't. Outside linebacker. I can't say his name either. Praise. I'm gonna say Martin Owagle. Safety Marquis Smith. Defensive end Jacoby St. Fuller. Cornerback Torrey. God dang it, McTyler or Tyre. Cornerback Larry Hope. What is my opinion? The guy that I like the most out of any of these guys is Chase Allen. So yeah, that's my opinion. Ronald Hyatt says, during preseason, who are 2 players on... I cannot believe I tried to pronounce your last name, Ronald. This is another question from Ronald. He says, Dolphins preseason, who are the 2 players on both offense and defense are you most excited to see, and why those players? I think the 2 guys that I'm most excited to see play is Charles Harris. He's our first round pick, and I can't wait to see him play. And in terms of like Davion Smith, I can't wait to see play because he's gotten a lot of praise. Raekwon McMillan, I can't wait to see play in real life and game action because of all the praise he's getting. And obviously, I'm really high on Raekwon. I think he's going to be a really good player, and I want to see him play so very, very bad. Isaiah Ford, because of he was a steal. Who else? Deontay Carew. I'm excited to see how much he's improved. Same thing with Jakeem. I just can't wait to see if he's improved. I'm excited to get back to football, but those are the guys that I can't wait to see play. Why do you think Darrelle Revis would be a good... This question comes from Ronald. He says, why do you think Darrelle Revis will be a good addition to the Dolphins? To me, he is washed up, and he doesn't care anymore. A lot of people say he doesn't care anymore. Darrelle Revis is one of the most competitive-natured human beings in sports. He takes the game very, very seriously. And I think he actually was really upset about how he was portrayed in the media last season and how washed up he actually is. I don't think he's washed up. I think he can play safety. I think he can play corner. I think he can play nickel corner. He's one of the best tackling DBs in the league. He's feisty. He's still athletic. A lot of people forget what really led up to the fact that he didn't play up to his potential as Darrelle Revis standards is that he was overweight because of injuries. He didn't get an full offseason in because of that, because he was hurt the entire offseason, and during the season he was dealing with injuries, and he was playing overweight because of that. So that is the reason Darrelle Revis was like that. I don't think it was because he's washed up. If he got back in shape and was healthy, I think he would be just as good as he was in 2015. What injury did Rashawn Scott sustain in OTAs? I can't remember. I think it was a very minor injury, so don't worry about it. Ronald says, do you think Miami will keep 7 receivers, and if so, who are the 4 besides the big 3? Big 3 are Landry, Stills, Parker. I think 4 should be Drew Morgan. I'm excited to see him play in preseason. Mitch Matthews, Deontay Carew, and Jakeem Grant. With Malcolm Lewis, P.S. because of his special teams value in the return game if Grant goes down. I'm going to disagree with Mitch Matthews and add Rashawn Scott for sure because he's played very, very well. And I'm going to add either that or Isaiah Ford. This question comes from E. Steven. He says, Skaggs, kind of a sickening fact, but what is your opinion on Tom Brady selling the most jerseys in Florida, other pro athletes in Florida? Also, if Jordan Phillips doesn't get consistent and our rookie DTs don't pan out, what's the next move, free agent or trade or for a DT? To answer the Tom Brady thing, not everybody, if the whole state of Florida was Dolphins fans, I would understand. And again, the state of Florida, huge state, very big state, a lot of different, fans in that state. I'm sure there's a bunch of bandwagons in there. And I lived there for a very long time, so there are a bunch of bandwagons there. I can speak from experience. I don't know why I said that like I've never been there. Let's see here. What else? Jordan Phillips, DT, if he doesn't pan out, what's the next move? Probably free agency, I would say. Or definitely the draft, either way. Doesn't matter to me. But I would say free agency for sure. I think somebody like, Sheldon Richardson or somebody like that. Sean Jacobson, which game is the most important and why? I say Dolphins Bucks. I think I answered that question in the fan Q&A. Sean Jacobson, is there a chance we can beat the Falcons in Week 6? There's always a chance. Sean Jacobson says, what will be the biggest strength and biggest weakness for our defense in this upcoming season? By the way, have been here since 150 subs, so keep up the good work. I appreciate you, Sean. Sean, I'm going to say, okay, hang on. Okay, so our biggest strength and weakness on our defense. Strength, biggest strength, defensive line. Biggest weakness, safety. Grant Van White. If you could keep one Dolphin or one core from the team to build a new team around, who would it be? So if I could keep one piece to build a new Dolphins team around, it would be Ryan Tannehill, for sure. I think I would handle the situation I would build the team around him. I would build consistency around him. I would find him the right coaches, and I would build. First off, give him a dang good offensive line. That would be one of my priorities. Not have bad drafts. Put pieces around him, and consistency. That's what I would do for Tannehill, and I think he would be remembered. He would be more loved than he should. He would get more credit, I think. And I think Tannehill is a super talented quarterback. So yeah, Ryan Tannehill. Jonathan, I answered that question, Jonathan. In the fan Q&A, Steven606 answered that question. Lou says, do you think that Mike Pouncey will start in week 1? Yes. Lou says, will you consider Isaiah Ford to be a draft steal? Yes, I do. Matthew N answered that question in the fan Q&A. Is it all a dream? Which team will sign Darrell Green Beckham, or should we pick him up if their wide receivers don't work out? Which teams will sign him? God. He needs to go to a team with great coaches, because so far I think that's been a problem. And he hasn't really gotten time to develop. So I would say somebody like Bruce Arians could definitely help him out. Jay the Boss 14 says, do you think Miami will turn Charles Harris and Cameron Wake a sack duo, or do you think Wake will retire by the time Charles Harris had unlocked his full potential? That's a great question. Don't make me feel sad about that. Like, Cameron Wake is not old, and he's still 25 in my heart. Yes, absolutely. I think this upcoming season they're going to be a sack duo for sure. So I can't wait to see those both play. I definitely think they'll be a sack duo before Cameron Wake retires. You're making me sad even the thought of it. To be honest with you, it's going to be a very sad day when I see Wake retires. But this has been your Miami Dolphins podcast. Remember, this posts each and every Wednesday. If you like that, then go check out all the other stuff on my channel. You should enjoy everything else. And if you made it this far, I appreciate you. I think I said remember this post each and every single Wednesday. And I am Skyx1383. And I'll see you guys in the next one.